Same business, different day.
Essentially, you build a relationship and then you provide them a service, and it's you build up a trust of each other, and so usually that trainer will trust you and your opinion, and because you are a good veterinarian, and that's how you keep your business. I mean, it's all a lot of things in this world are sales.
Yeah.
Essentially, if you stop and think about it.
Sure.
So you're building relationships, and you do that through personality and knowledge.
Same business, different day.
Good afternoon and welcome back to the Same Business, Different Day podcast. First, I want to introduce my ultra-talented co-host, Alyssa Lee Good, the notorious ALG.
You're too kind.
A story so great that we can only hope to fit it into one episode. His fabulous work with others isn't limited to people, but we'll get into that. Dr. Hunter, DVM, we want to thank you for your work and can't wait to hear more about it. How you doing today?
Fantastic. Thank you.
Great. We're going to start off we have a little game that we play. We want to tell you the rules of the game. So, Alyssa, you want to tell me?
So we're here to talk about you, Dr. Hunter, and we're here to talk about your business. But before we get into it and before we actually reveal what you do for a living, we want to get to know you. So we call it the reveal. We'll wait for that. We'll wait to talk about what you're actually doing with your businesses right now, talk about your background first, and get to know you.
Sounds good.
All right. Where did you grow up, Dr. Hunter?
I grew up in Southern Illinois on a farm. I have 4 sisters, and fortunately I was the oldest, so I didn't get spoiled.
Okay.
And my father made sure that we all knew how to work from a very young age, and we had morning chores every morning before school, and of course after school, and in the summer times we're super busy. So I learned at a very young age a fantastic work ethic. So, and to my detriment or not, that's followed me throughout the rest of my life. And I'm 76 years old and still going strong.
That's right.
What kind of farm? What kind of chores were you doing?
We had mixed crop farms, corn, soybeans, wheat. We had cattle, so we cattle, pigs, sheep. Fortunately, the sheep didn't last too long. They seemed like they wanted to die all the time. So,
that's not good.
But, well, I was in the 4-H, and my father thought that would be a good project for me. So we didn't really know anything about sheep, and that lasted about 2 years.
What did your parents do for a living? Were they farmers for a living?
Yes. And then later in our life, when I was probably 12 or 14 years old, my father got a job at a strip mine with Peabody Coal Company, and he worked on. They had these big excavating shovels, and he worked on one of those.
Coal work. That's dangerous work, though, isn't it?
Well, it's a bit, but probably not much more dangerous than farming.
Okay. Okay. Did you grow up aspiring to be a farmer, or what were you trying to study or thinking about doing?
Well, when I was a kid growing up, I never really had any aspirations to be anything in particular so much. I followed along the farming route, and was, that was what I was exposed to, and that's what I knew. So didn't really have a goal as to what I wanted to do when I, quote unquote, grew up. But my father did promote into all of us that we would all go to college. And so I had planned on going to college, and my father says, "Well, what are you gonna major in college?" I says, "Well, I really don't know." He said, "Well, why don't you become a veterinarian?" So I thought, well, that sounds like a good idea. So I just went along that course and wound up as a equine practitioner and eventually in California.
Wow.
So
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about the veterinarian work, but I also want to, I mean, it sounds like your father was really kind of the mentor. Like, were there other mentors in the area or anybody else that you looked up to that you know, maybe were doing other things and you were considering, or you ever considered, or you always wanted to go the path that your dad kind of planned out for you?
not particularly. My grandfather was a good mentor for me. My father was a bit strict and stern and expected a lot. And my grandfather was more like my mother, a little more forgiving and reasoning and actually very supportive. So I would say that he was probably the most influential person in my life, my father.
So, where did you go to school?
I went to school at the University of Illinois. Well, first I went to 3 years in Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. And then I got into vet school and was there for 4 years, Champaign-Urbana. And then actually between my second and third year in veterinary college, a friend of mine and I, he had a 1963 Corvette. And we threw our junk, what we could get, into that and headed off to California for the summer and thought, well, we'll get a nice construction job or something. The only problem was there was 200,000 or 300,000 other kids looking for those jobs too. So eventually we decided that we should give up on that idea and look for a job with a veterinarian. Maybe we'd get a job there. So we went to some small animal clinics and did some interviews and eventually wound up working for a fellow that had a racetrack practice in the Bay Area in Northern California. And we wound up working for him on a ranch in Modesto for the summer. And that's when I got my exposure to racehorses. And after that summer, I knew what I was planning on doing for the rest of my life.
So working with racehorses was sort of by happenstance. I was curious if, you know, on the veterinary track, if you were thinking about different animals, what animals you wanted to work for, but I knew you had worked with racehorses. So was it, you know, you needed the job so it happened, or were you considering working with other animals also?
Well, growing up on a farm, my father, the idea of a veterinarian was a veterinarian that took care of cattle and farm animals and drove a truck and carried a squeeze chute around behind him in the truck. And I knew I didn't want to do that. So if you've ever been slapped in the face with a cow with an old shitty tail, that's not fun. And that I knew I did not want. So I was looking at feedlot management and things like that of interest. And after that summer, I wasn't looking anymore. I knew what I wanted. So God put you in the right places at the right times, it seems.
There you go. What struck you about the racehorses? What made you think, I'm going to stick with this?
Well, they're beautiful animals. They have their own unique personalities. They're very, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it's a challenge and it's also exciting. When you go to the racetrack and you at the starting gate and the gate breaks open and the horses take off, I mean, it's an excitement that's undescribable, really, unless you experience it. So that's what really got me excited about the racehorses was spending the time at the racetrack itself.
We talked a bit before. I also have a background in horses, and the way I describe it to people with my show horse is he was my partner. You know, it's
Right.
not just your pet. It's not just an animal that you're training. It's a bond and a relationship. There's a lot of trust that goes into it because they're big animals, you know.
Right.
And so he was my partner. He was someone that I worked with and understood on a different level, and that's how we were successful.
Right. And it works with him on the other end too, because you were his friend and he trusted you. And that's why he would do those phenomenal things for you, because you both trusted each other.
Right.
And that's if you own a race or any horse, that's what you learn about them. If you really get involved and they're not just use them as a tool, if you really start to understand them, they have feelings just like you and I. They build a bond. They trust you or they don't trust you, depending on how you treat them. And if you build a good relationship, they can be loyal and do anything you ask them to do
Wow.
willingly.
Wow.
For a long time. Horses live a long time. People don't realize. I think my show horse lived to 42.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what can you give us the extent of your work at Golden Gate Fields? I mean, you know, I used to live up in Northern California. I've never been to Golden Gate Fields. I've been down here to the Del Mar racetrack, but can you tell us about what you were doing up there?
Well, I was in private practice. There were probably 10 other veterinarians that were in practice. And we worked for individual trainers. So it's a very competitive atmosphere. If you don't like what one veterinarian is telling you, you can flag down another.
Oh,
You know,
really?
Because they're there all the time. You don't take the horse to an office or a clinic. The veterinarian comes to the barn.
So are you
And so
selling
it's a lot.
yourself out there? You're out there trying to sell yourself? You're telling them why they should come with you as opposed to some other veterinarian
Well,
that's on the premises?
Essentially, you build a relationship and then you provide them a service, and it's you build up a trust of each other. And so usually that trainer will trust you and your opinion and because you are a good veterinarian, and that's how you keep your business. So it's not, I mean, it's all a lot of things in this world are sales.
Yeah.
Essentially, if you stop and think about it.
Sure.
So you're building relationships, and you do that through personality and knowledge.
And then other folks might try to undercut you and so forth, you know, taking that same approach.
Well, it's not so much undercutting in prices. It's just they try to build, another veterinarian might try to build a relationship. And if you mess up, make something happens that isn't the trainer's liking, then they might try to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
But every racetrack is not that competitive. Some are more so than others.
But Golden Gate Fields was a big one.
Competitive atmosphere.
That was a big one though, right? Golden Gate Fields. I mean, you were there during some of the great races in the historic times. Is that right?
Yeah, Golden Gate Fields and Bay Meadows, those were the two tracks in Northern California. And in the 80s, that was before for the lotteries and before organized gambling. So that was the only place to gamble, and people were more interested in it because it was really the only legal gambling sport in town. So so you had crowds, the grandstands were full on weekends, and it was a phenomenal time in racing.
This is just my mind working, but I mean, it must have been some devious things going on as well, though, too, right? I mean, in terms of if you got legal gambling here, and you know, as the veterinarian or somebody else might come by and want to give a shot to a horse or avoid getting a shot to a horse or something.
Well, that's one of the things that they do have is testing, and they test all the samples, and so it's pretty hard to do anything that's really going to make give you that much of a competitive edge.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think that was the right answer,
everyone.
Dr. Hunter. I think that was the right answer.
They test every winter and spot test other horses, so it keeps people pretty honest.
Hi, I'm Jeff Fox, founder of StarFox Media. We're a digital marketing and video production company that focuses on serving small businesses here in Vista, California. We have the team and all of the equipment necessary to produce, film, edit, and distribute your podcast to as many people as possible. For more information, you can reach out to us via email at info@starfox.media or give us a call at 760-385-3117. Let StarFox Media help you tell your brand story today.
The Vista Chamber of Commerce serves our local business community. We're a catalyst for business growth, providing connections to business prospects, networking opportunities, and relationships in a friendly, referral-based environment. We provide access to business resources, information, and training to support the growth and professional development for you and your employees. We're a convener of leaders and influencers, and we provide advocacy representation with elected officials, policymakers, and business leaders at every level of government. We have influence over issues that directly impact your business and facilitate collaborations of business and community leaders to identify and to solve challenges. Lastly, we're a champion for a stronger community, and we strive to inspire smart planning decisions for long-term community sustainability. We identify strategic partnerships to benefit the business retention and growth, workforce development, and charitable giving. And we represent a vibrant community by responding to visitor needs and providing assistance through our office. Check us out online at www.vistachamber.org.
North County Daily Star is the leading source for news and community information. There are 650,000 residents along the 78 corridor and 5 unique cities that share the region, North County, San Diego. We work and play in these cities, so we are all interested in what happens in our common region. There is no cost to subscribe, and it is continuously updated. So look for us on your mobile device or computer at ncdailystar.com.
Got it.
That's a high stakes job, though. I bet, especially for the vet, a lot of pressure, a lot weighing on you. If you have to make a difficult call and somebody doesn't like what you have to say, how do you handle that?
Well, it's because you build a relationship with a trainer, and when you tell them something, they've realized that you're telling them the truth and the best thing for the horse and the owner and the trainer. So it's a trust, a lot of trust, and knowledge that your veterinarian is honest. So
yeah,
and most are.
How many years did you do that?
40 years, actually.
Oh, man.
So
40 years, right out of college?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's like when I graduated from college, I knew I had a job already. I knew where I was going. The guy that I worked for there offered me a job, and I was there for 40 years.
Wow.
And so then after that, did you get into this new business that we haven't revealed yet, or was there a retirement period, or what was happening after 40 years?
Racing in Northern California is not that healthy. In Southern California, the average purse is between 45 and 50,000 a race. In Northern California, it was around 20, 22, but the expenses are pretty much the same. And so it's much harder to make a living in under those circumstances. So a lot of trainers were struggling, and I could see it wasn't getting any better. So I realized that I needed to make a change. So I sold my practice and essentially retired from racing. And I had been going to San Ynez Valley in just above Santa Barbara for since the early 70s because my cousin lived there. And so I decided, well, that was a good place to move to. So I did.
I lived in that area. Well, I shouldn't say that. How do you say it the right way? I was not born there, but my family lived there when I was born, right? So I was actually born in Los Angeles, Hollywood, Kaiser, Hollywood. But I actually lived in the Santa Barbara County during that time. That's where my family lived. And so, but I still go back and visit, and I've always wanted to retire there. So I want to get to the reveal. That's kind of why I cut you off. So, you know, some of you guys might think you've heard the whole story, but you haven't, because there's a lifetime of work here that would lead most of us into a happy retirement. He's worked with the horses, he's been at the racetrack, he's had a great time, but that's not it. Dr. Hunter is back in business, and the current business is just as impactful as the earlier endeavors. Dr. Hunter is the founder of Nirvana Hyperbaric Institute, dedicated to forwarding the science of hyperbaric oxygen therapy, established in 2010. So I want to get back to that though. Why Santa Barbara? Why Santa Ynez? Why Solvang? Actually, I think that's where your office is located. Is that correct?
Yes. I love the area. It's a beautiful area.
It is.
I've been going there since the early 70s, and I've watched it change from a cattle, more cattle agrarian economy to now wineries, and that I've watched. I visited there for a few years, or for 2 or 3 times every year for several years.
Yeah.
And, I'm a member of the Rancheros Vista, which is a trail riding group there.
Okay.
And, so I go there every year for a week's retreat.
Yeah.
Trail ride and stuff like that. So a lot of stuff goes on. And it's just a beautiful area. So that's why I picked it.
We used to camp down the street from there almost every year at Lake Kachuma, and do wine tasting out there when I got old enough to do that. And I've always said that I'd like to retire there. And my dad has always told me that you invite us over, and so we appreciate that. You're welcoming in that way. And I haven't gotten a chance to get out and see you yet, but would love to, because your office is still there. Can you tell us about the Nirvana Hyperbaric Institute?
Well, it's evolved into a facility where we're treating insurance patients and non-insurance patients. Unfortunately, hyperbaric medicine is only covered for insurance for certain conditions. A few of those: non-healing diabetic wounds, a radiation injury from cancer therapies, osteomyelitis, bone infections, carbon monoxide poisoning, things like that. Those are covered by insurance. Unfortunately, there are a ton of other things that it works for that aren't covered by insurance, and we also treat those. So one of the most exciting things to me, well, there's 2 exciting things primarily, but one is treatment for traumatic brain injury and concussions, because while it's not on neurologists' radar screen, it should be the first option for treatment. If a patient will do hyperbarics within the first 10 days of a concussion or a brain injury, usually it only takes 3 to 4 treatments to stop that inflammatory cascade that goes on inside the skull from the injury. And if it's gone on longer than that, it takes up to 40 or 60 or even 120 treatments. But it will regenerate blood vessels to that tissue and repair even that long-term damage. There's a lot of research going on by the Israelis now that are supporting this, and lots of other research has gone on in the past that also supports it. So it'll be the next covered condition for insurance, but I don't know how long that's going to take. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people that have a concussion, if they could be stopped right at the very beginning. And instead, they have long-term complications, which can be headaches, brain fog, all kinds of detrimental things that affect them the rest of their life. So
we did
that excites me.
we did a bit of a internet dive, just doing a little bit of research about your institute and finding out more. And we found on your website a quote by you. You said that hyperbaric oxygen therapy is the best kept secret in medicine. And I'm just wondering, why is it a secret? Why it seems from my research into it that it is a big deal. It's a big thing. I've never heard of it. Why haven't I heard of it?
Well, primarily because two reasons. One is that doctors aren't trained about hyperbaric medicine in medical school. The only exposure they get to it is if they happen to be at a medical school that has a wound care center and they do some rounds in the wound center. And then they get exposed to the hyperbarics. But that's more just an exposure and lets them know that it does work for wound care. They don't really get into the physiology of hyperbaric medicine, and they just don't know how it works because of that. And secondly is that most conditions aren't covered by insurance. And so hospitals will not treat conditions that are not covered by insurance. And doctors are hesitant to prescribe something that's not covered by insurance. So.
Now, like you said, it's not taught in med school. How did you make that transition? How did that get to you where you felt like this is a passion, this should be a passion of yours?
I was familiar with hyperbaric medicine in horses because it had been used for, I was exposed to it like 20 years prior to my retirement. And in fact, there was a veterinary clinic in San Ynez Valley in Los Olivos that Alamo Pintado Equine Clinic. And Doug Herthel was the founder of that and the owner, and he was a very progressive fellow, and he had hyperbarics there since probably around 2000, probably more than earlier than that, probably like 1990s. And so I was familiar with it there. And actually, when I moved to San Ynez Valley after I retired, my cousin was doing hyperbaric medicine for a condition called Lyme's disease.
Okay.
And so I got exposed to it through that and got interested in it. And one thing led to another. And not knowing any better, I opened up a clinic.
So you didn't really want to retire?
No, I didn't want to retire. I had to stay busy.
We know someone
I
like
retired
that.
from the racetrack.
We do know someone
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, Pops won't retire. Pops, we talked to Pops about retiring, and I don't think that's something that he's interested in at all. I think he thinks retiring means something else. Let's just put it that way.
Well, if you love what you do, why should you stop doing it?
Sure. But you stopped doing one thing and you moved into another thing. So you love working is what you love to do.
Yeah, I love working. I did. I did love my father instilled that into me, I suppose.
Yeah,
so.
you said that at the beginning, and yeah, we get the picture, and that's beautiful to have that work ethic because my dad certainly instilled that into me as well. So, one of the things that you also mentioned, though, is healing wounds or wound care. And I had done some reading on the hyperbaric chamber, and I heard that it's a big thing for burn victims, right? And even
Yes.
Michael Jackson, who wasn't too far from you, that was supposedly why he was, in the chamber so much.
Right. Usually with burns, if a person gets a burn injury, they're going to be in a burn unit at a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're in a good burn unit, they'll have hyperbarics there that they can use. Because if a person is seriously burnt, they need other care along with not just hyperbaric medicine. We only provide hyperbaric medicine. So
Understood.
we wouldn't really be treating burn victims. Possibly some chemical burns or something like that don't require intensive care, but primarily we wouldn't see those patients.
But it does, at least it accelerates a healing process, is what I'm
Oh,
understanding.
very definitely, very definitely. A good burn center will have hyperbarics, and they use that daily.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. He also mentioned, or what I was reading also mentioned things about like deep sea divers or like people who like just really require oxygen. And actually, even what I saw on your website, it said, it was an equation that kind of blew my mind. And I'm not sure I'll get it right, but it said oxygen plus pressure equals healing. I think it said oxygen plus pressure equals something.
Yes.
And what does pressure fit into that equation?
There you're getting into physiology.
Okay.
So,
Class
and
time.
how hyperbarics work.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, the way the body works. So let's say you're a mountain climber and you just climbed the highest mountain in the world and you're at 30,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
The reason the amount of oxygen up there is the same as it is at sea level. Same concentration of oxygen.
Okay.
The difference is the atmospheric pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Because at 30,000 feet, you've got 30,000 less feet of pressure above you. So the pressure is a lot less. And pressure causes oxygen to dissolve into a liquid. So the liquid is your blood, the pressure is the atmosphere, and at sea level, you're breathing, 80% oxygen or 82, and that causes oxygen to dissolve in tissue. In hyperbaric medicine, you're increasing the pressure, you're providing them with 100% oxygen, and so you get up to a 15 or even more fold increase in oxygen concentration in the body. And that causes some really interesting healing mechanisms to take place. One is it stimulates the body's own production of stem cells by about 8-fold increase. Others are fights infection, reduces inflammation, stimulates angiogenesis or new blood vessel growth into tissue that's oxygen deprived. Pretty phenomenal healing.
Yeah, it is. That kind of reminded me right there. That reminded me of why I didn't go into medicine, because I didn't learn very well in class. Science was not my calling. Was science your calling? Was it easy in school for you?
I wouldn't say it was easy, but it was interesting. Physiology was interesting always, and science has always interested me.
Yeah. Like I said,
easy, I wouldn't say.
At the beginning, of the podcast, we go back to thinking about, what it's all about, and for people to kind of find their calling and find what business they want to get into. And some people, they need to work for others and want to work for others, but some people have ideas of what they want to do, but they just don't know how they're going to facilitate that or make that work for them. And it's awesome that you've been able to find, at least two professions that you've been able to be successful in. And I think that this is a great story to tell those people. One of the thoughts that I was having yesterday as I was, reading a little bit about you, for what I do in terms, and it's not necessarily healing. I got a little back problem, a little knee or whatever, but other than yoga, I like to do the flotation tanks or the sensory deprivation chambers and stuff. And so when I was looking at the hyperbaric chamber, I'm thinking, it kind of put me in that mind frame of being like in this enclosed space kind of thing. But I'm sure there's a big difference, right, between the sensory deprivation chambers and the hyperbaric chambers.
Yes. Hyperbaric chambers, a lot of people think it's like going into an MRI and you can't move and you've got your arms down beside you. But that's not the way a hyperbaric chamber works. You're essentially in a bed. If you're not very tall, you can sit up in our chambers because we have the biggest ones, one of the biggest ones on the market.
Wow. And
it's pretty comfortable. You watch TV, listen to music, meditate, sleep. So it's very user-friendly. Huh. The thing is, it's the drawbacks are that it's a daily treatment because the therapy, the effects of oxygen are cumulative. And it's also, it takes an hour and a half to 2 hours out of your day just for the treatment.
Every day. So that can get expensive.
It can get expensive and time consuming.
Sure. It's okay if you decline to answer this, but I think, I actually think I saw something mentioned on, or maybe it was, I don't know, website or Yelp or something. It mentioned CBD. And when I'm thinking about the sensory deprivation chambers, I know the owner of the one that I used to go to in San Diego, he was big on, smoking marijuana before he went into his chamber. Does that have anything, does that compute at all or, correlate at all with what you guys do in terms of the meditation factor of it?
Not particularly what we offer. If somebody did that on their own, then it wouldn't be detrimental.
You wouldn't turn them away?
Absolutely not. It wouldn't be detrimental. And the fact, nicotine, smoking is suggested that you don't smoke for 3 or 4 hours before you get in the chamber because of the vasoconstrictive effects that nicotine has on your
lungs,
on your body.
Okay.
On your lungs and your heart, your arterial vessels in your heart.
Wow. There's
no chance of a heart attack in a chamber because heart attack is when an artery in the heart becomes occluded and the heart muscles run out of oxygen. Well, when you're in the chamber, you're going to have plenty of oxygen, so that's not going to happen even if you did have an artery that was clogged during the session. It would happen afterwards, but not during.
Okay. Can we clear up?
That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
Okay. Can we clear up the rumor? There's no rumor. I'm just making this up as a joke. But Dr. Hunter, that you didn't sell Michael Jackson his hyperbaric chamber.
No, we didn't.
The Same Business, Different Day podcast is brought to you by YourInsurancePlace.com. YourInsurancePlace.com is a conglomeration of 2 agencies, Network One Insurance and Bill Corley Insurance Agency. Their property and casualty agents and brokers specialize in commercial insurance of all types, general liability, workers' compensation, professional liability, auto, agribusiness, and much more. They also have great insurance carriers for your homes and autos. How do I know they are that good? Because I'm one of the agents. We believe in ourselves, and you will too. Contact us at yourinsuranceplace.com or call us direct at 866-384-0479. That's yourinsuranceplace.com.
Homestart is a San Diego County nonprofit agency that has prevented child abuse and neglect since 1972. Our mission is to assure the safety and resiliency of children by strengthening families and their communities. Those in our care are already some of the most vulnerable residents in any given year. With the added financial and emotional stress caused by the pandemic, San Diegans most at risk for poverty, abuse, unemployment, and homelessness need our services now more than ever. To support our mission and learn more, please visit www.home-start.org. Together, we can work towards all children in San Diego living in a safe, stable, and a nurturing home.
I'm curious, because this is, how am I starting the sentence? This is not a widely used practice at the moment. And so what's the conversation with other medical doctors, and how do they feel about it? How are they approaching it? You know, when you are talking to someone else in the field, what's that conversation like?
Well, I do that pretty much daily. Not necessarily daily, but 2 or 3 times a week. I'm out in the field and I'm seeing doctors, and primarily oral surgeons, urologists, podiatrists for wound care, and just educating them about hyperbaric medicine if they're not familiar with it. And if you build a relationship with them, they'll finally start to listen to you, and they'll refer a patient. And when they see the results, then we get more patients.
Okay.
Because it does work. So that's the way we educate doctors about the benefits of hyperbaric medicine and how it works. So.
And it's very much relying on the product then. You have to have the proof that it works to continue the business.
Yeah. For instance, urologists that have radiation cystitis or radiation injury to the bladder, the patient will get blood in the urine, and probably half the time by the 10th treatment, the blood is either stopped or reduced. And so that's pretty impressive. So after they usually do 30 treatments, and then the doctor will see the results. So
okay.
Do people with autoimmune diseases such as Parkinson's or multiple sclerosis, do they benefit from this type of treatment as well?
Yes, they do. In England, there are a series of close to 60 centers that are nonprofit centers that were established to treat MS. And their protocol was to do 20 treatments in a row, and then do 3 to 4 treatments monthly thereafter. And they found that 70% of the patients, it maintained the condition and prevented progression. Wow. So that's pretty impressive.
That is very impressive.
So, some of the patients even improved, and some lesions, spinal lesions, even repaired themselves. So.
Wow.
That's exciting news.
I know a lot of folks, again, I'm talking about alternative therapy, but a lot of folks use cryotherapy. How does it compare to like a cryotherapy? That's when they get into the real cold atmosphere, right?
Yeah, it doesn't really compare. There are two entirely different therapies, and they work in totally different ways.
So I think athletes use that a lot, right? The cryotherapy.
Right, they do.
Okay.
Right.
Not as much the hyperbaric.
Well, they do use hyperbarics.
Okay.
I think LeBron James uses one quite regularly.
I think the first person I ever heard using it was Terrell Owens, and that was many years ago out in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
For the Niners.
Yeah. No, they should use it more, especially for some of these injuries that, like bone injuries, because if they did the hyperbarics, it would stimulate the healing probably cut it in 1/3.
And then you don't have the agencies being over you, like, because a lot of those guys wind up on those steroids, right, for the healing, but instead you could do a hyperbaric, which is completely legal, correct?
Right. The problem with a lot of these athletes is they use these soft chambers. They buy one and they use them, and they only go to maybe 1.5 if they're adjusted, and they use oxygen concentrators. And so for bone healing, you need to be at 2 or to 2.4 atmospheres, breathing 100% oxygen. So they don't get the same benefit. So they don't have a real guideline to compare what they would properly receive if they did the best therapy available. So that's part of the problem with that.
That's great. That's great information. I think I was on Yelp when I saw your institute referred to as a gym. Is there other things going on there, or was I reading something wrong?
At Nirvana?
Yes.
Originally, we had a room for exercise with oxygen. Our community just didn't support that, so we closed that down. But that's another therapy that helps, especially if you're 50 or 45 or 50 or older. It helps restore some cognitive things and stuff like that. So it's a very effective therapy, but it's not something we offer anymore.
Okay. Because that seems like a great idea. I'm a cyclist. I like, riding, and it seems pumping oxygen while you're riding would actually put that back in your blood cells and everything. That'd be great.
Yeah, it helps reduce the lactic acid in the muscles quicker, and it's a very effective therapy.
It's a game changer.
I like the name Nirvana.
Yeah.
It makes me think of peace, hard rock.
Can those be in the same sentence?
Sure. Where'd you come up with the name? Why'd you name it Nirvana?
I listened to a financial advisor on the radio some, and his comment always was, when he opened up his show, was, "I'm here to help you reach your Nirvana." So my idea of the Nirvana was a place of happiness, a place of a place where you wanted to be, and so that's why the name came.
That's good. Yeah. When you started off, I thought you were going into the hard rock.
Yeah. I was like, all right.
Stockter's hip. Okay, so well, we understand you have other hobbies though as well. We were talking earlier about expensive hobbies, and Alyssa was talking about horses being the most expensive hobby. But my dad, Pops, mentioned to me that you got your pilot's license as well. There are other things that you're doing as hobbies to kind of keep things going, right? To balance your personal and business.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've been very fortunate in my life, and I do a lot of things. I ski, sailboats, fly airplanes, and I love to travel. So those are some of my hobbies. Horses, of course, still. Yeah.
The trail riding, right? Up north.
Well, that, and we have our own horses still, so
okay.
To ride, that we ride, yeah.
Getting up early in the morning to feed them every day. I know I do that.
Yeah, the whole thing.
How often do you get into your own hyperbaric chambers?
I mean, you're staying young. What did you say, 76 years old?
If you're skiing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Tell some people I'm 100. I get in the chamber all the time. So
I'm 46. I won't ski now.
well, there's another study out there that the Israelis have done, and it's about anti-aging. And they've discovered that if you do hyperbarics, 60 treatments in a row, 5 days a week, you can increase the length of the telomeres on your chromosomes by about 25%. And telomere length or shortening actually is a measure of aging, and so kind of the gold standard. So this is the first study that's the first therapy that's able to do that, that's able to lengthen telomeres. And so their protocol was 60 days, and we're setting up our chambers to be able to do that now. And that's going to be my next project personally.
We also understand that you've got a nonprofit organization, something that you've set up as well. Is that correct?
Yes. I've actually had a little experience doing that. We set up a nonprofit at the racetrack to build an equine clinic in the 80s. And so I was involved in that. And we set up a nonprofit to treat people that primarily brain injury things, focusing on the military guys, the PTSD, because most of the PTSD is caused by a traumatic brain injury or blast concussions. And blast concussions cause damage to the microvasculature, or the very small blood vessels in your brain. And that's what causes a lot of the PTSD and the brain fog, the suicides. And this is another thing that should be covered by insurance. In fact, the VA has been mandated by Congress to do some studies and to provide this therapy. So right at the moment, they're doing some studies in about 4 different locations, and trying to get this on board because it is a shame, because there's been several hundred people that have been helped by hyperbaric medicine, that the military guys that have had PTSD, and they all respond. And it's a shame that it's not available to every one of them. And so that was why that we started our nonprofit, to raise money for that purpose.
Okay. Now you've got, am I understanding that, are you in North Carolina now? I understand you have another location that you've opened up.
I am in North Carolina right at this moment. So yeah, so I opened up another facility here. It's a long story how I got here, but
okay.
That we've just opened in October, and so I've been out promoting hyperbarics to doctors. It's a little tough now with this COVID because a lot of them don't want to see you. So, but it'll get there. It's just going to take a little longer.
I've been wondering too. I mean, this whole time, and it's one of the obviously, it's one of those kind of conversations that we've had to have with many of our guests, is the COVID effect.
Yeah.
Like how is that affecting business? How is that affecting you? How's that affecting, well, you've already said how it's affecting the conversations with the medical community. Yeah.
In Nirvana in California, our gross revenue was down probably 30%.
Mm-hmm.
It's just because of the COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Here, it's just delayed our growth.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll eventually get there.
Right. Is there anything that you can say about hyperbarics and COVID? Has there any studies been done there?
Absolutely. Instead of when you go on a ventilator, 80% of the people die.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
When you when you go on a hyperbaric chamber instead of going on the ventilator, it's like I've forgotten the figure, but it's between 20 and 40%. So the survival rate is about triple.
That's huge.
What it is. It is huge.
Yeah.
The problem is it's not approved for insurance coverage, so they don't use it.
Is that state to state,
There's
or
only a few? There's only a few hospitals that have used it, but they've got
different
phenomenal results.
different states? Can you go to a different state and they would accept it versus another, or is this just across the board
sure.
not accepted?
I'm not sure. By the time you get that to get to that point, you're already in intensive care.
Sure.
So you're not going to be able to go there.
Mm-hmm.
So the other place where hyperbarics, I'm sure, will work is a big percentage of the people that have recovered from COVID wind up with brain issues, brain fog, memory, having trouble remembering things, can't concentrate. If they would do hyperbarics, they would, because that's the same thing that happens with concussion. I mean, this virus causes concentration of oxygen in your red blood cells to go down to like really low, like 80% saturation. And that causes lack of oxygen to the brain. So you're doing brain damage.
Mm-hmm.
And the same symptoms for concussions and traumatic brain injury. And hyperbaric works for that. I know it would work for those conditions as well.
Wow.
Again, not covered by insurance, but if you can afford to do it, I would recommend it.
Why is that? Why is insurance such a hurdle for this technology?
Well, I don't think insurance companies want to pay out any more money than they have to.
Fair enough. I guess you know that, Mr. Zeke.
Yeah. Well, I don't do health insurance, but I do understand how insurance companies work.
Yeah.
What do you expect the therapy to be in the next 10 to 20 years or so?
Well, I expect there'll be a lot more of it available. I expect there will be bigger chambers that are multi-place where you can treat 20 people at a time. I expect that traumatic brain injury will be covered by insurance. Right now, the Israelis they're able to treat 300 patients a day in their chambers. And they've opened up a new facility in Florida. They're going to open, and they're opening up another one in Dubai in the next few months. And those are 20 or 24 place chambers. They're very comfortable, like airplane seats, and very luxurious. They do a lot of, they're doing brain scans and treating people for any type of brain injuries, and also this anti-aging therapy that they've proven.
Wow.
And so they're going to be opening up these facilities all over the world. And there will be several of them in this country. That's where in 20 years, there'll probably be, 50 of those centers around. My expectation is.
Have you studied with the Israelis, or are you just watching them and looking into what they're doing?
I follow all their research. Dr. Afridi is a very progressive fellow. They have probably a dozen different physicians that specialize in hyperbaric medicine. So they're doing all these different studies. They did a study 2 or 3 years ago on fibromyalgia in hyperbaric medicine. They've done some on Alzheimer's. They've done some research on traumatic brain injury. The latest was this anti-aging study they did. That's where I see hyperbarics in 20 years.
Beautiful.
Well, I've got a difficult question for you. Who's the more difficult patient, the horse or the human? I'm kidding, of course. You don't.
That's hard to answer because with the horse, you're not only treating the horse, you're treating the human that owns the horse.
Okay.
So if it was just the horse would be the least difficult.
Sure. Yeah.
There's humans in both equations.
Yeah.
So thinking back to those early years, and we appreciate you being with us and appreciate you going back to those years. Would you teach your older or your younger self anything? Is there anything? I mean, you've obviously learned great lessons, the work ethic, how to, manage a successful business. You found yourself in the right places at the right times and chosen the right professions. But would you say anything to your younger self? Because, we've got an audience listening who are basically your younger self.
I would say one of the things that I would fault myself for and would suggest that people do is set goals.
Beautiful.
Set goals. It makes things happen. I would say if you're starting up in a business, know the business thoroughly. I started out with hyperbaric medicine, and I didn't know the field thoroughly. And it took me probably 6 years to learn it thoroughly. So you need to learn the field thoroughly before you get into it. Know what you're getting into.
Love it.
I've kind of learned to stay away from partners as much as I can.
Okay.
Rely on myself more. You can have associates and build relationships, but when it comes to the finance part, I prefer to rely on myself now. I've learned that lesson.
It's a good lesson to teach.
Yeah. So I think setting goals is probably the biggest one. Set those goals. You have to think about it. Makes you think, makes you plan. A lot of times I rolled through life and just rolled through life. It was great and everything, but it could have been better if I had thought about it more and set those goals.
Okay.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, we want to thank you. We want to thank you for your work. Your early work and your current work, obviously, and hopefully I can get out there and one day meet you up in Solvang and have a glass of wine. There's a recurring theme of a glass of wine here in this podcast, so I'm comfortable with being out there and visiting some of my favorite wineries. But also thank you for your work, with the people, the PTSD that you mentioned and so forth, because all of that's important. And hopefully the medical professionals get behind you and the insurance companies get behind you and really, help folks. And what you just said, actually, that was all impromptu when it came to the COVID talk. Mm-hmm. But that's a big deal right now. And we hope that there's some people out there listening to this that can help promote that and help move forward with some real developments, because this thing isn't going to stop. Vaccines or not, there's going to be people with different complications. And if something as simple as, oxygen is the answer, it's just getting it from the right place in the right way with the right concentration and the right professionals. If that's all it takes, then we need to educate people, so that we can get there.
And do the research.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Set goals. Alyssa, you want to give them the contacts?
Absolutely. If you'd like to check out the Nirvana Hyperbaric Institute, and I recommend that you do, their website is www.nirvanahbo.com. You can check them out on Facebook at Nirvana HBO and Twitter at Nirvana HBOINST.
Thanks so much, Dr. Hunter, for being with us.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right. Have a good day.
All right, you too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Tell Pops I said hello.
Will do. Absolutely.
Same business, different day.